Morris dance is a form of English folk dance usually accompanied by music. It is based on rhythmic stepping and the execution of choreographed figures by a group of dancers, usually wearing bell pads on their shins. Implements such as sticks, swords and handkerchiefs may also be wielded by the dancers. In a small number of dances for one or two people, steps are performed near and across a pair of clay tobacco pipes laid one across the other on the floor. The earliest known and surviving English written mention of Morris dances dated to 1448, and records the payment of 7 shillings to Morris dancers by the Goldsmiths Company in London. Further mentions of Morris dancing occur in the late 15th century, and there are also early records such as visiting bishops' Visitation Articles mention sword dancing, guising and other dancing activities, as well as mumming plays. While the earliest records invariably mention Morys in a court setting, and a little later in the Lord Mayors Processions in London, it had adopted the nature of a folk dance performed in the parishes by the mid-17th century. Outside England, there are around 150 Morys sides in the United States. British expatriates form a larger part of the Morys tradition in Australia, Canada, New Zealand and Hong Kong. There are isolated groups in other countries. Name and origins. The name is first recorded in the mid-15th century as Morisque dance, Morys dance, that is, Moorish dance. The term entered English via Flemish Morisque dance. Comparable terms in other languages are German Morisquentens, French Morisques, Croatian Moriaka, and Morsco, Morsca or Morisca in Italy and Spain. The modern spelling Morris dance first appears in the 17th century. It is unclear why the dance was so named, unless in reference to fantastic dancing or costumes, that is the deliberately exotic flavor of the performance. The English dance thus apparently arose as part of a wider 15th century European fashion for supposedly Moorish spectacle, which also left traces in Spanish and Italian folk dance. The means and chronology of the transmission of this fashion is now difficult to trace. The Great London Chronicle records spangled Spanish dancers performing an energetic dance before Henry VII at Christmas of 1494, but Heron's accounts also mention playing of the Morys dance 4 days earlier, and the attestation of the English term from the mid-15th century establishes that there was a Moorish dance performed in England decades prior to 1494. It is suggested that the tradition of rural English dancers blackening their faces may be a reference to the Moors, miners, or a disguise worn by dancing beggars. History in England. While the earliest references placed the Morris dance in a courtly setting, it appears that the dance became part of performances for the lower classes by the later 16th century. In 1600, the Shakespearean actor William Kempe Morris danced from London to Norwich, an event chronicled in his 9 Days' Wonder. Almost nothing is known about the folk dances of England prior to the mid-17th century. While it is possible to speculate on the transition of Morris dancing from the courtly to a rural setting, it may have acquired elements of pre-Elizabethan folk dance. Such proposals will always be based on an argument from silence, as there is no direct record of what such elements would have looked like. In the Elizabethan period, there was significant cultural contact between Italy and England, and it has been suggested that much of what is now considered traditional English folk dance, and especially English country dance, is descended from Italian dances imported in the 16th century. By the mid-17th century, the working peasantry took part in Morris dances, especially at Whitsun. The Puritan government of Oliver Cromwell, however, suppressed Whitsun ales and other such festivities. When the crown was restored by Charles II, the springtime festivals were restored. In particular, Whitsun ales came to be celebrated on Whit Sunday, as the date coincided with the birthday of Charles II. Morris dancing continued in popularity until the Industrial Revolution and its accompanying social changes. 4 teams claim a continuous lineage of tradition within their village or town: Abingdon, Bampton, Headington Quarry, and Chipping Campden. Other villages have revived their own traditions, and hundreds of other teams across the globe have adopted these traditions, or have created their own styles from the basic building blocks of Morris stepping and figures. Several English folklorists were responsible for recording and reviving the tradition in the early 20th century. often from a bare handful of surviving members of mid-19th century village sides. Among these, the most notable are Cecil Sharp, Maud Carples, and Mary Neal. Boxing Day 1899 is widely regarded as the starting point for the Morys revival. Cecil Sharp was visiting at a friend's house in Headington, near Oxford, when the Headington Quarry Morys side arrived to perform. Sharp was intrigued by the music and collected several tunes from the side's musician, William Kimber. Not until about a decade later, however, did he begin collecting the dances, spurred and at first assisted by Mary Neal, a founder of the Esper Copyright Rance Club, and Herbert McIlwain, musical director of the Esper Copyright Rance Club. Neal was looking for dances for her girls to perform, and so the first revival performance was by young women in London. In the first few decades of the 20th century, several men's sides were formed, and in 1934 the Morys Ring was founded by 6 revival sides. In the 1950s and especially the 1960s, there was an explosion of new dance teams, some of them women's or mixed sides. At the time, there was often heated debate over the propriety and even legitimacy of women dancing the Morys, even though there is evidence as far back as the 16th century that there were female Morys dancers. There are now male, female and mixed sides to be found. Partly because women's and mixed sides are not eligible for full membership of the Morys Ring, 2 other national bodies were formed, the Morys Federation and Open Morys. All 3 bodies provide communication, advice, insurance, instructionals and social and dancing opportunities to their members. The 3 bodies cooperate on some issues, while maintaining their distinct identities. Styles. Today, there are 6 predominant styles of Morys dancing, and different dances or traditions within each style named after their region of origin. Cotswold Morys, dances from an area mostly in Gloucestershire and Oxfordshire. An established misnomer, since the Cotswolds overlap this region only partially. Normally danced with handkerchiefs or sticks to accompany the hand movements. Dances are usually for 6 or 8 dancers, but solo and duo dances also occur. Northwest Morys, more military in style and often processional, that developed out of the mills in the northwest of England in the 19th and early 20th centuries. Border Morys from the English-Welsh border, a simpler, looser, more vigorous style, traditionally danced with blackened faces. Longsword dancing from Yorkshire and South Durham, danced with long, rigid metal or wooden swords for, usually, 6 or 8 dancers. Rapper from Northumberland and Company. Durham, danced with short flexible sprung steel swords, usually for 5 dancers. Molly dancing from Cambridgeshire. Traditionally danced on Plough Monday, they were feast dances that were danced to collect money during harsh winters. One of the dancers would be dressed as a woman, hence the name. Joseph Needham identified 2 separate families of Molly dances, one from 3 villages in the Cambridge area and one from 2 in the Ely area. Ploughstots from the East and North Ridings of Yorkshire, also danced on Plough Monday. The dancers often held flags, used similarly to handkerchiefs in Cotswold and border dances to emphasize hand movements, or rattling bones, rather than wearing bells but for the same purpose. A similar Plough Monday tradition exists in the East Midlands. Some of these dances involve swords, usually danced over in a similar manner to bagpipes jigs from Oxfordshire. Cotswold Lionel Bacon records Cotswold Morys traditions from these villages: Abingdon, Adderbury, Ascot under Wychwood, Badby, Bampton, Bidford, Bledington, Brackley, Bucknell, Chipping Campden, Ducklington, Insham, Headington Quarry, Hinton in the Hedges, Ilmington, Kirtlington, Learfield, Longborough, Oddington, Sherborne, Stanton Harcourt, and Wheatley. Bacon also lists the tradition from Lichfield, which is Cotswold-like despite that city's distance from the Cotswold Morys area. The authenticity of this tradition has been questioned. In 2006, a small number of dances from a previously unknown tradition was discovered by Barry Kerr of Moulton Morys, many 2 of them danceable. Other dances listed by Bacon include Border Morys dances from Brimfield, Bromsborough Heath, Eversham, Leominster, Much Wenlock, Pershaw, Upton upon Severn, Upton Snodsbury, White Ladies Aston, and miscellaneous non-Cotswold, non-border dances from Steeple Claydon in Winster. There are a number of traditions which have been collected since the mid-20th century, though few have been widely adopted. Examples are Broadwood, Dunstew, and Alsington under Wash in the Cotswold style, and Upper and Lower Pen in the Border style. In fact, for many of the collected traditions in Bacon, only sketchy information is available about the way they were danced in the 19th century, and they have been reconstructed to a degree that makes them largely 20th century inventions as well. Some traditions have been reconstructed in several strikingly disparate ways. An example would be Adderbury, danced very differently by the Adderbury Morris men and the Adderbury Village Morris. Northwest equals. The Northwest tradition is named after the Northwest region of England and has always featured mixed and female sides at least as far back as the 18th century. There is a picture of Eccles Wakes that shows both male and female dancers. Historically, most sides danced in various styles of shoes or boots, although dancing in clogs was also very common. Modern revivalist sides have tended more towards the wearing of clogs. The dances were often associated with rush carts at the local wakes or holidays. The dances themselves were often called maze or garland dances as they involved a very intricate set of movements in which the dancers wove in and out of each other. Some dances were performed with a wicker hoop held above the dancer's head. Some dances were also associated with a tradition of mumming and hold-a-pace egging play in their area. The Britannia cocoa-nut dancers, named after a mill not far from Backup, are unique in the tradition, in that they used sawn bobbins to make a noise, and performed to the accompaniment of a brass ensemble. They are one of the few Northwest Morris groups that still black up their faces. It is said that the dance found its way to the area through Cornishmen who migrated to work in the Ross and Dale quarries. Towards the end of the 19th century, the Lancashire tradition was taken up by sides associated with mills and nonconformist chapels, usually composed of young girls. These lasted until the First World War, after which many mutated into jazz dances. The dances have evolved stylistically and the dancer's unregistered trademark dress has changed to include pom-poms and elements from other groups, such as cheerleaders and Irish dancers. However, they refer to themselves as a Oe Morris dancers wear bells, and are still mainly based in the northwest of England. This type of Morris has been around since the 1940s and is also referred to as carnival or a fluffy Morys dancing. They take part in many different competitions during the year and end it with a Oe championship. One dance troupe is crowned the champions. This type of Morris is also found in the north of Wales, where there are many different organisations with many different troupes. In 2008 NEMDCO held a large competition at Blackpool in the Blackpool Tower Ballroom. The winner of this competition was Valencia, a troupe from Liverpool. During the folk revival in the 1960s, many of the old steps to dances such as Stubbins Lane Garland were often passed on by old people. Border equals. The term border Morris was first used by E. Seacote in a 1963 article on the Morris dance traditions of Herefordshire, Shropshire, and Worcestershire counties along the border with Wales. Characteristics of the tradition as practiced in the 19th and early 20th centuries include black painted faces. Use of either a small strip of bells or no bells at all. Costume often consisting of ordinary clothes decorated with ribbons, strips of cloth, or pieces of colored paper. Or sometimes fancy dress. Small numbers of dances in the team repertoire, often only one and rarely more than two. Highly variable number of dances in the set and configurations of the set. And an emphasis on stick dances almost to the exclusion of hanky dances. Sword dancing equals. Usually regarded as a type of Morris, although many of the performers themselves consider it as a traditional dance form in its own right, is the sword dance tradition, which includes both rapper sword and longsword traditions. In both styles the swords are not actual swords, but implements specifically made for the dance. The dancers are usually linked one to another via the swords, with one end of each held by one dancer and the other end by another. Rapper sides consist of 5 dancers, who are permanently linked up during the dance. The rapper sword is a very flexible strip of spring steel with a wooden handle at each end. The longsword is about 2–6 inches long, with a wooden handle at one end, a blunt tip, and no edge. Sometimes ribbons are threaded through a hole in the tip of the sword, and the dancers grab onto them during the course of the dance. Longsword sides consist usually of 5 to 8 dancers. In both rapper and longsword there is often a supernumerary character, who dances around, outside, and inside the set. Mumming. The English mummers play occasionally involves Morys or sword dances either incorporated as part of the play or performed at the same event. Mummers plays are often performed in the streets near Christmas to celebrate the new year and the coming springtime. In these plays are central themes of death and rebirth. Other traditions. Other forms include Molly dance from Cambridgeshire. Molly dance, which is associated with Plough Monday, is a parodic form danced in work boots and with at least one Molly man dressed as a woman. The largest Molly dance event is the Whittlesea Straw Bear Festival, established in 1980, held at Whittlesea in Cambridgeshire in January. There is also hoodening, which comes from East Kent, stave dancing from the southwest, and the Abbots Bromley horn dance. Another expression of the Morys tradition is vessel cupping. This was practiced in the East Riding of Yorkshire until the 1920s. It was a form danced by itinerant ploughboys in sets of 3 or 4, about the time of Candlemas. Additionally, there is a specifically Welsh version of this terpsichorean art that is distinct from the Borders Morys style. This style is called Nantga tradition after a small village in the Taff Valley. One Nantga dance, Waikasegaira, is derived directly from notes made on traditional Welsh dances from the 1890s. These notes were made by Dr. Shannon Thomas in the 1950s from the childhood recollections of her mother, Catherine Margaretta Thomas. Others are more modern inventions made in the style of older dances. Dances in the Nantga style include Casegaira, Hela Sgwarnog and Ty Cochcadid. Music was traditionally provided by either a pipe and table or a fiddle. These are still used today, but the most common instrument is the melodeon. Accordions and concertinas are also common, and other instruments are sometimes used. Often drums are employed. Cotswold and sword dances are most often accompanied by a single player, but Northwest and Border sides often have a band, usually including a drum. For Cotswold and Border dances, the tunes are traditional and specific. The name of the dance is often actually the name of the tune, and dances of the same name from different traditions will have slightly different tunes. For Northwest and sword dancing there is less often a specific tune for a dance. The players may use several tunes, and will often change tunes during a dance. For dances which have set tunes, there is often a short song set to the tune. This is sung by the musician, or by the whole side as an introduction to the tune before the dance. The songs are usually rural in focus and often bawdy or vulgar. Songs for some dances vary from side to side, and some sides omit songs altogether. Several notable albums have been released, in particular the Morys On series, which consists of Morys On, Son of Morys On, Grandson of Morys On, Great-Grandson of Morys On, Morys on the Road, and Mother of All Morys. Terminology: like many activities, Morys dancing has a range of words and phrases that it uses in special ways. Many participants will refer to the world of Morys dancing as a whole as the Morys. A Morys troupe is usually referred to as a side or a team. The two terms are interchangeable. Despite the terminology, Morys dancing is hardly ever competitive. A set is a number of dancers in a particular arrangement for a dance. Most Cotswold Morys dances are danced in a rectangular set of 6 dancers, and most Northwest dances in a rectangular set of 8. But there are many exceptions. A jig is a dance performed by one dancers, rather than by a set. Its music does not usually have the rhythm implied by the word jig in other contexts. The titles of officers will vary from side to side, but most sides have at least the following. The role of the squire varies. In some sides the squire is the leader, who will speak for the side in public, usually lead or call the dances, and often decide of the program for a performance. In other sides the squire is more of an administrator, with the foreman taking the lead, and the dance is called by any experienced dancer. The foreman teaches and trains the dancers, and is responsible for the style and standard of the side's dancing. The foreman is often active with the passive dancers. The bagman is traditionally the keeper of the bag, that is to say, the side's funds and equipment. In some sides today the bagman acts as secretary and there is often a separate treasurer. On some sides a ragman manages and coordinates the team's kit or costume. This may include making bell pads, ribbon bands, sashes and other accoutrements. Many sides have one or more fools. A fool will usually be extravagantly dressed, and communicate directly with the audience in speech or mime. The fool will often dance around and even through a dance without appearing really to be a part of it, but it takes a talented dancer to pull off such fooling while actually adding to and not distracting from the main dance set. Many sides also have a beast, a dancer in a costume made to look like a real or mythical animal. Beasts mainly interact with the audience, particularly children. In some groups this dancer is called the hobby. Most Cotswold dances alternate common figures with a distinctive figure. The common figures are common to all dances in the tradition. The distinctive figure distinguishes that dance from others in the same tradition. Sometimes the choruses are not identical, but have their own sequence specific to the tradition. Nevertheless, something about the way the chorus is danced will distinguish that dance from others. Several traditions will often have essentially the same dance, where the name, tune, and distinctive figure are the same or similar, but each tradition employs its common figures and style. In England, an ale is a private party where a number of Morys sides get together and perform dances for their own enjoyment rather than for an audience. Food is usually supplied, and sometimes this is a formal meal known as a feast or ale feast. Occasionally an evening ale will be combined with a day or weekend of dance, where all the invited sides will tour the area and perform in public. In North America the term is widely used to describe a full weekend of dancing involving public performances and sometimes workshops. In the 16th to 19th centuries, the term ale referred to a church or village-sponsored event where ale or beer was sold to raise funds. Morys dances were often employed at such events. Modern dance. The soul of Morys dancing exists within many individual groups, which are for the most part constituted as autonomous clubs or sides, each with its own constitution and procedures. Sides do not exist in isolation, and generally coexist in a spirit of goodwill and meet regularly, not just at large folk festivals or meetings organized by the three national umbrella organizations, but also at annual feasts or ales that many sides organize. Apart from copious amounts of drinking and eating, these events are an opportunity for large numbers of Morys dancers and musicians from across the country to come together in massed ensembles, performing throughout the area covered by the host side. In theory, sides may acknowledge geographic rights of others, although, except in very unusual cases, there is actually nothing to stop one side performing in the heartland of another. In the past this may have rarely been done without permission and agreement, but in modern practice such courtesies are mainly taken for granted. In most cases, sides partner each other via a system of mutual invitations at Morys dancing venues. Morys dancing is now an art and recreation enjoyed by people across the world. In England, there are many mixed Morys sides that enable people to dance and have roles irrespective of gender. Evolution. The continuance of the Morys is as much in the hands of independent groups of enthusiasts as it is in the nationwide groupings such as the Morys Ring or the Morys Federation. So while for some sides there is a feeling that the music and dance recorded in the 19th century should be maintained, there are others who freely reinterpret the music and dance to suit their abilities and including modern influences. In 2008 a front-page article in the Independent magazine noted the rising influence of Neo-Paganism within the modern Morys tradition. The article featured the views of Neo-Pagan sides Wolf's Head and Vixen Morys and Hunter's Moon Morys and contrasted them with those of the more traditional Longman Morys men. Conversely, The Telegraph carried a report on January 5, 2009, predicting the demise of Morys dancing within 20 years, due to the lack of young people willing to take part. This widespread story originated from a senior member of the more traditionally minded Morys Ring, and may only reflect the situation in relation to member groups of that one organization. The success of Terry Pratchett's Discworld novels has seen the entirely invented dark Morris tradition being brought to life in some form by genuine Morris sides such as the Witchman Morris and Jack Frost Morris. The advent of the Internet in the 1990s has also given Morris sides a new platform upon which to perform. Many Morris sides now have entertaining websites which seek to reflect the public persona of the individual sides as much as record their exploits and list forthcoming performances. There are also a multitude of thriving Morris-related blogs, forums and individual sites that are to be found maintaining an interactive presence on major social networking sites. Kit and clothing. There is great variety shown in how Morris sides dress, from the predominantly white clothing of Cotswold sides to the tattered jackets worn by border teams. Some common items of clothing are, bellpads, baldricks, rosettes, waistcoats, tatty coats, knee-length breeches, wooden clogs, straw hats, top hats, or bowlers, neckerchiefs, armbands. Namesakes. The dance may have given name to the board games 3 Men's Morris, 6 Men's Morris and 9 Men's Morris. Erasmus Grasser, a German sculptor, created 16 realistic animated wooden figures in the late 15th century called the Morris Dancers. 2 ships named Morris Dance have served in the Royal Navy in the 20th century. See also, Bal de Bastons, Car Florin Loyari, English Country Dance, Maculila Morska, Moria Car, Morris, A Life with Bells On, Pipe and Tabor, St. George's Day in England, Way of the Morris, a 2011 documentary film by Tim Plester and Rob Curry, Weapon Dance, Metashines. Notes. References, Forrest, John. The History of Morris Dancing, 1458 to Euro 1750. Cambridge, James Clark and Company Limited, 1999. External links. The English Folk Dance and Song Society at Cecil Sharp House, London, The Morris and Sword, Dancers of England,